All right, Texas Longhorn fans, the 41st acre, Benny Boy, Justin, and Brett back at you here. We're unfiltered, a little biased, 100% truthful. We are talking Texas versus Georgia, SEC championship game, a rematch. Hey, maybe these teams will play again in the playoff. We'll see. Obviously, Georgia won the first matchup in Austin, 30-15. Texas got off to a horrible start, lost the field position battle, turned the ball over early, and try to dig themselves out of a hole. Couldn't do it. So that was one of the big wins by Georgia through the year. So we got the rematch here. Texas is favored. Who would have thought that? You lose by 15 at home and you play again and you're favored. Texas is right now, according to ESPN, is a 2.5-point favorite. Over under on this game is at 49.5. And according to ESPN analytics, Texas has a 61.5% chance to win this game. So I guess nobody watched the first game, or they're not really taking that into the account. They're taking into the account the full body of the work throughout the rest of the regular season. Texas obviously coming off of a stomping on A&M that should have been 31-0. 2 red zone turnovers, 1 a pick six that gave A&M their only score of the game. And then Georgia, of course, coming off an 8 overtime win over Georgia Tech. And that was a battle. And I watched every minute of that, hoping Georgia would lose, thinking what would happen. And I'm actually kind of glad they won, because had they lost, they would be fueled coming into this game. They'd be coming in angry, kind of just like they did going into Austin. I felt like they came in angry and played their butts off, and Texas wasn't ready for it. Brett, go on. Initial thoughts.
I would add to that too. If they lost that game, then this SEC championship would be a must-win for them to maintain their CFP bid.
Yeah, because at that point you're looking at a potential 4-loss conference championship game loser. So,
yep.
But yeah, again, I felt like it was better for Texas that Georgia won that game, and took a lot out of them. 8 overtimes. I know the overtime rules are different now, but that's still a lot of emotion. A lot of back and forth.
It's like a 6-hour game.
Yeah, a lot of extra hits. And they don't get any extra rest before this next game.
Yeah. And Kirby Smart admitted that he exhausted his 2-point play playbook.
Yeah, when you get that far down the road, I mean, you pretty much.
Well, what's funny is they kept throwing it, and then they finally run it, and then they end up getting that conversion and win it. So, so looking back to the game in Austin earlier, they had 3 rushing touchdowns. I mean, Carson Beck also had 3 turnovers. So I think that's their key, is limiting Carson Beck throwing the ball and trying to run the football. Obviously, it was the key to them beating Georgia Tech in overtime. My initial thought going into this game, if Texas can stop the run and limit turnovers, Texas should win the game. ESPN thinks it. Joel Klatt thinks it. Anybody that watches football, I think, sees that Texas is a better team. It doesn't always play out that way on the field. That's why they play the game. But that's my initial thoughts. We have some injuries as well we want to talk through. Brett, you want to take that off?
Yeah, well, Justin, you can give us an update on the big injury that we had this past weekend.
Yeah, no worries. Last week, suck at eggs. And Ben, I wanted to touch on what you were saying about why Texas is favored right now. I think it's because people watched the game. Like, true bookmakers watch the game, and they understand that, like, Texas beat themselves. Like, they played the worst game they've played all year long, and Georgia tried, but still, I mean, even with us giving them all the short fields and everything, at one point it was still a 1-possession game in the second half after us spotting them 23 points. I think what you see is, like, they see that, people watch the game and they understand that Texas is better than what they showed in Austin. So, is the line right? Who knows? The line is only made to get 50% bets on each side. That's not a true indicative of what the score is going to be. That's why they play it on the field, as you said. In regards to injuries, I mean, Kelvin Banks obviously is like the number one guy we're worried about. It sounds like it's a lower leg, maybe ankle, foot. I haven't seen anything official, but it looks like he's questionable. So that could suck. But I know you're going to talk about Gooseby here in a sec, Brett. So if they can show that they have the depth that, we believe they all have, then hopefully if Kelvin Banks is limited or just unable to play, that, the offensive line doesn't struggle too much. The other interesting news that came out, not really an injury, but Georgia lost one of their starting DBs. Well, I guess he was a semi-starter this year. Julian Humphrey, already moving out to the transfer portal. Sounds like he's been in and out of the transfer portal this year. He's started a lot of games and then lately not started so much. So interesting to see that. Maybe there's some internal rifts or something happening there. So I don't know. Let's just hope that Georgia still brings out their best, because if and this whole storyline comes out that, Georgia had these people leave and Georgia wasn't at their best, Texas, you won a sham of an SEC game happens, I can't tell you how mad I'm going to be. And I can already see the headlines coming. We played a weak schedule. SEC's down this year. If Texas wins, yada, yada. Kick rocks, man.
Yeah, I will, based on the comments I made in our pregame for Georgia last time, I'll be hesitant to bring up any kind of culture issues with Georgia. I know that we talked a lot about that. They had a bad summer. They had players getting arrested. They were kicking people off the team. Now you've got this guy, Julian Humphrey, who's hitting the transfer portal right in the middle of the CFP bid. Yeah, I mean, it screams culture issues, right? And typically teams with bad culture don't go very far. But last time I mentioned that, they made us regret everything I said there. So I'm not going to bring that up again. One thing I when I was watching the replay of our post game from the A&M game that we did not talk a lot about was the Kelvin Banks injury. And Kelvin Banks, I mean, if you don't know him, I mean, you should, because he's probably going to be the first tackle taken off the big board on when the NFL draft starts later this spring. And he's been an actual stalwart on the offensive line for 3 consecutive years now. He's a true junior, but I think he started every single game that he's been a part of this Texas program. And obviously our best lineman, maybe our best lineman each year for the past 3 years. This is how good he is. And constantly grades out as our best lineman, one of the best linemen in the SEC and all across college football. And last week, in the first quarter, when he was injured with that ankle injury and didn't come back in the game, we put a redshirt freshman, Trevor Gooseby, into the game. And honestly, I don't ever remember the offensive line missing a beat. He seemed to step up and really play well. I don't think he had any pressures. He did have one false start, which is fine. One's okay. I'll take one. If you tell me that a redshirt freshman is going to come in there and have one false start, I'll take that any day of the week, especially the one that's playing left tackle, probably the most challenging position on the entire offensive line. So I just wanted to give a shout out to Gooseby for being able to come in and play. And it kind of goes back to what Jake Major says. He's like, hey, you're on the Texas offensive line. We expect, it doesn't matter if you're first string, second string, third string. When you get into the game, you play as a cohesive first string unit. And that's what he did last week. So definitely want to sing his praises a little bit on this podcast. As far as my initial thoughts go on, going into this Georgia game, Ben, I think with the line being Texas favorite, I think that just goes to show how Vegas values the challenge of being a good team twice. And I think Texas is a good team, regardless of strength of schedule, regardless of anything really. Bad quarterback play, getting beat on the offensive line. I think it's hard to beat a good team twice. And I think, if you go and you look at the track record of Sark, he has demonstrated his ability to respond to adversity after playing a team for the first time. And he did that with last year in the Big 12. We went and played every single team we lost to in the Big 12 last year, and we came back and beat them. Every team we lost to in the Big 12 in 2022, and in 2023 we beat them, right? And most of the times it was just an absolute assault on them. So I do think that I have Vegas, myself, fans have some faith in Sark to be able to look at film, adjust, and put those adjustments into play in a game like this. And I think that is all indicative in the current spread that we're seeing.
Yeah, the only game that Texas or that Sark wasn't able to respond to and come back and beat the second time was those pesky Huskies. That's one team We got beat in the Alamo Bowl, right?
Yeah.
And then we got beat in the CFP. That was
That's
unfortunate. But we played better. And we had a full complement. Like, we didn't have Bijan when we played him in the Alamo Bowl. Probably would have been a difference maker, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. I'm all over the place on our segments here. So thanks for being able to be shifty. Yeah, like you said, I think it's tough to beat a good team twice. Looking back at the last game, so Georgia's the scoring summary from last game: 4 plays, 13 yards, touchdown. 7 plays, 13 yards, field goal. 3 plays, 34 yards, touchdown. 7 plays, 25 yards, field goal. 4 plays, 4 yards, field goal. And then 1 drive that was 11 plays, 89 yards, and a touchdown. So, yeah, if Texas gives them the ball with 34 yards or less to score, Georgia's going to win the game again. So I think, Texas, if they can run the ball again like they did against A&M to finish that game as well, against a good, everybody says A&M had a great SEC defensive line. So I think, first downs last week were better. So, getting off to a good start on first downs, setting up, and being able to run the ball. Justin, your thoughts?
Yeah, I actually did want to comment on what you said about the one drive that was 80 yards or whatever, and they took it all the way down. Since Georgia, I went back and looked at some drive charts. Since Georgia, we've played Vanderbilt, Kentucky, Florida, Arkansas, A&M, right? I think I could be misremembering the number, but I think in those 5 games, we've let up like a legit drive all the way down the field for a touchdown. I think we've let up 3 or maybe 4 drives where it was like they had to go the whole, more or less the length of the field, right? Because they didn't against A&M. The defense let up 0 points. Against Arkansas, I think they let up 1, right? Against Vanderbilt, I think they let up 1, and then they had the defensive touchdown was the other one, right? And then, or whatever, a turnover led to a touchdown. The turnover led to the field goal. And then against Florida, they didn't drive the ball except 1 time down the field. And the same thing with, no, I guess that's the games right there. Like, I just think it's very difficult to drive the ball all the way down the field. Like, if we give them short fields, we don't play complementary ball, that's where Texas is going to get hurt, like a lot like what you said. So we need to play complementary football, take care of the damn ball, run it. You got to go in there and like be ready to punch them in the mouth. We got punched bad back in October against them. You got to be ready to give them the business every single play. And I think after seeing it once, like you said, Brett, it's hard to beat a good team twice. After seeing it once, they're going to come ready to play. They're going to get up for this game. They're better in person for the big games than they look on film. I think that is just, if you look at Georgia the past 4 years, that is just a tried and true statement right there. They can sometimes play down to their competition, but whenever it's a big game, they get up for it and they play. So play complementary football, take care of the ball, run it, give the defense a chance to rest and play strong all 4 quarters. Keep revenge on the mind. Like, you go play bully ball, but you can't get out of character. You can't have a bunch of stupid penalties. So, man, I'm looking forward to seeing this team like make a statement back, like what we thought they were going to do in Austin, but just prove that hey, not only do we belong in the SEC, but we're good enough to be champions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, for sure. I think one thing that has to happen is Quinn. Quinn has to make adjustments, right, in the pocket. Can't let himself lose his technique, get his eyes down. He needs to be scanning the field. And then the offensive line miscues that I'll say the offensive line miscues on like pre-snap penalties, because we had a lot of false starts in that game, and I think we had a lot of holding penalties as well, which we have completely reduced in the since that game, really. I think Vanderbilt, we had a much better game. I think much cleaner game. So since that game, we've gotten a lot better at it. You have to continue that trajectory. But then you also the offensive line has been so good being like one cohesive unit, especially last week, right? I mean, we saw them pass block for Quinn so well. They're communicating. Our running backs got in and chipped. When you play a team like Georgia, a team that their talent is so high that that can almost it can allow them to play down, but it can also allow them to play up, get up for those big games, right?
Yeah.
Those guys come in, and we've got these thoroughbreds on the defensive line that are going to come in. You have to make sure that everyone's talking, everyone's communicating. That's like the number one thing that has to happen for Texas to win this game is like the offensive line and Quinn's play.
Yeah.
Everything else is secondary to that. If you don't have those things, you're going to give the ball back to Georgia in your territory, right? Which is what happened. And Georgia's going to have easy opportunities for, at minimum, field goals, if not touchdowns. I want to see that turnaround. I want to see this offensive line kind of play pissed off and get in a position where they're looking at Jalen Walker across that line at that linebacker position. They say, you're not going to touch Quinn this game.
Yeah, and kind of to further that, I mean, if you look at box score from last game we played them, granted this includes negative 34 yards rushing from Quinn, but with that, with the sack yardage in there, we averaged 1.1 yards per carry. Wisner did the best at 3.5. We got to get Wisner going. If we can win on first and second down and make that third down, 3rd and 3 or less, talk about a different game. I think we converted 2 of 15 third downs. We convert half of them. We're in a much better spot, right? Their offense ain't anything that we can't handle. Okay, Beck is not that good. I'm sorry. Come at me, Beck. I thought you were much better than what you were. To be fair, him and Quinn were the top 2 Heisman player odds to start the season, and look at where they are now. They're both playing okay, but man, they have their warts. So if we can stop the run and make Carson Beck pass against the number 1 pass defense in the country and play complimentary ball, win first and second down, makes third down a lot easier.
Yeah, 7 sacks last game. You cut that in half. It's a different ball game.
Yep.
All right, guys, let's talk about these championship games. Are these games meaningful? Like we assume no matter the result, both of these teams are in the playoff. I know Texas, when I saw the rankings, they have like a 99.9% chance to make the playoff. So it's essentially a lock. I don't know what the 0.10 or the 0.1% is. I don't think that's going to happen. Regardless of Texas' strength of schedule being weak, supposedly weak, we beat a lot of teams that have beat a lot of other good teams. The argument for Alabama, we beat a team that beat them. We beat 2 teams that beat them. We should have beat Vanderbilt by more. Kind of had some turnovers late, but pretty well handled them. Stopped Diego Pavia. Destroyed Oklahoma. Yeah, quarterback change, whatever. They put up 3 points against Oklahoma. We put up, I don't remember, 40?
34, something
there you
like
go. Okay. And I think we let off the gas a little bit as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. But this game, is this meaningful or not? Like, what do you guys think? Is there, obviously the reward is getting a bye. And, I guess as of now, probably being the 2 seed. I would assume maybe, unless something happens with Oregon, SEC champion is going to be the 1 or 2 seed. So, Brett, we'll start with you on this one.
Yeah. The winner of this game is the 2 seed, right? I don't see. Well, I mean, Oregon could lose to Penn State, and if that's the case, then yeah, it'll be the 1 seed. So it's the 1 or 2 seed. I've got such mixed feelings on this game now. Last year, the SEC championship meant everything, right? Recap the last year. You have an undefeated Georgia, number 1 team in the nation, going into the SEC championship to play Alabama to avenge previous losses to Alabama in that SEC championship game. And Alabama comes in there and beats them again, I think, for the second time that year. I can't really remember now. No, because Georgia was undefeated, and I think it was from the prior year, right? But regardless, Georgia lost that game, undefeated, 12-0 going into it, so they have a 12-1 record. And who was the first team out of the second team out of the college football playoff last year? It was Georgia. So last year, the SEC championship game meant everything. You had to win that game in order to make the CFP. That is not the case anymore. So right off the bat, there is a little bit less there's a less importance to this game in ways of thinking about it. However, now as a Texas fan, the greatest thing in the world is to be able to come into this game and say, first of all, you're the first Texas school to go to an SEC championship game. So, stick it to our little brothers down the road, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you come into the SEC, the Gauntlet League, right? The league that everyone says you were not going to be ready for 3 years ago to Texas, especially Aggies, and you come in and you win the SEC in your first year. Not only is that a stamp on just how being prepared and really sticking it to all your rivals and everything, but it's a very exciting thing for Texas fans to see in the fourth year head coach of Sark and see where this program really can go. Could it become a dynasty? Sure. That's probably what we're talking about. But certainly the SEC championship is not as important as it was in prior years to where you had to win to get in. Now you're talking about two things. You're talking about either having a bye, which is great. You get a bye week, you get more time to rest and prepare for the second round of the playoff. But if you lose, you get a home playoff game against a higher seeded team, likely a 11 or 12 seed is probably where you end up. And as a season ticket holder, I wouldn't mind going to one more game at DKR this year. That'd be cool, right? Be able to see a CFP game at your home stadium. So like I said, I'm completely torn on it. I do like the idea of one thing I don't like the idea of, and Ben, you mentioned it earlier, was it no matter if you win or lose this game, there's a chance that you might have to play Georgia a third time. So if you go all out and win this one, and then you lose the next one because you showed all your plays and you kind of showed your strategy going into the playoff, you actually had a disadvantage going into the third matchup between these two schools. So there's a lot of things for me to consider here. I think overall, I want Texas to win. I want Texas to win always. I wish this game was as meaningful as it has been in the past. I think there would be a little bit more excitement for it. But knowing that you're already in the CFP, there's a little bit of hesitancy to say, I really just hope that we get out of this game without any significant injuries.
Yeah, you obviously you got to put injuries aside, but yes, you obviously hope that you get out of it every game without significant injuries, right? I think it's still just as important, if not more important than in years past. Yes, it was win and you're in, but now it's win and you get the bye. You get the additional, so you get 3 weeks of rest, right? I think that is the carrot that the CFP, whatever bracket or the committee puts in front of you of, hey, if you're a conference champion, we will reward you with not only making CFP, making the playoffs, being the top 4 seed, but you get an extra bye. That's one less chance you have to lose. Yes, there's a chance we play Georgia again, right? If, like you said, if Oregon loses and Texas could move up to the 1 seed, then it's less likely we play Georgia, but that all will shake itself out. We'll figure, go from there. If you don't go out there to play, then you have a better chance of getting hurt, right? I think we would all agree. If you play not to lose, you're going to look like you're playing not to lose. You're going to get beat and maybe get beat badly and maybe get hurt doing it. So I think you got to go out there, revenge the game that you lost, at least play like it, right? But also, if you go out there and you play Manila and you don't try to win this game, then I think it's going to be some kind of mental hurdle. How long did it take for Georgia to finally get past Alabama? When we agree that Georgia had a very, very talented team for multiple years, but they just couldn't beat Bama. Now they have. Nick Saban's no longer there anymore as well, and Alabama still beat them. But now you're starting about a mental block inside all the players of, well, we tried, and then I guess we pulled back on one and we couldn't do it again. So can we do it the third time if we have to play him again? That's just a dangerous game. I don't want to play. You go out to win every game. You try to get the bye. If you end up playing them a third time, that's great. Beat them that time too. If not, and they lose to Indiana or whoever they might end up playing, hey, at least it wasn't you, right? I don't want to put Texas in any more risk than anybody. I want them to play the minimum amount of games they have to play in front of them to win the championship, right? And that starts with beating Georgia on Saturday. That's the way I feel about it. I know there's does it mean as much? Yes, I think it does. Getting the bye is more important than showing them your play. Say that again.
You don't have to play. I said it does not mean as much. You do not have to play this game when you're still in the CFP. That automatically disqualifies it from meaning as much. It still means something. I agree with you, but it does not mean as much. Like literally last year, Georgia lost this game and did not get into the CFP. That makes it more meaningful.
I get it. Yeah, it's not the winning you're in for sure, but winning you don't have to play one more time. You don't have to risk losing another time. Take the bye, get 3 weeks off, start prepping.
Yeah,
Brett, I can barely hear you in 720p. So you guys, I know Justin. I think you mentioned earlier, like the Georgia showed all their cards. They used all their 2 point plays against Georgia Tech. So that's like a concern. You guys think, like, again, Sark goes all out with the playbook this week, or is he saving something for these other playoff matchups? Because I think last year against Washington there were some things that they saved that we hadn't seen before, and obviously last week the 16-wheeler package, we hadn't seen that before, and that was freaking awesome. So two questions. That's the first part. The second part is with the injuries. What if Quinn is slightly injured? Do you play Archmore in this game? Again, knowing that in your back pocket, you're already in the playoff, and we know what Quinn's capable of, and we can't afford to lose him. So, Justin, you go first and hand it off.
Yeah. So first, I don't think Sark will ever be done creating plays and showing people what he has in his playbook. He is one of the most creative minds in offensive world, or college football world. I just don't see him running out of ways to get more creative and expand upon the playbook we've already seen. He's probably been working on some of these things for the whole season and just slowly rolling them out. So I'm not worried about running out of plays. Personally, I think Sark's too good. In regards to, Quinn's injury, definitely important. I think the offensive line, like we talked about, has to play as if they're ready to not let Quinn get hurt. And Quinn plays like he did last week, where he's willing to move the pocket and not just accept the sack, move around, get a 26-yard run around the corner, right? Like, you can do it, okay? And the offensive line has to take it upon themselves to not let him get in those situations to get hurt. And he also has to put himself in a situation to, okay, if I'm going to take a sack, I got to do it, and just put myself down and slide this way or whatever, right? If he gets nicked up, then it comes down to can we win the game without him? If we can, okay, great, right? Like, let Arch do it. And Quinn, you don't have to be at risk anymore this game. But I think what you got to just realize, or got to play the mentality of the game, is like, run the ball. Don't lose first and second down. You don't put Quinn in these situations where he can get hurt on these third and long plays where we just got destroyed every single down, it feels like, against Georgia last time. So it's a whole team mentality. Everybody on offense has to be on the same page of, we're going out there to impose our will on these people. We're going to be able to run the ball. We got to protect Quinn, let that ankle heal up, and go win the damn game.
Ben, can you hear me in 720p?
Yeah, you're coming in clear.
You're going to have to repeat your question. Now, after listening to Justin's answer, I don't recall exactly what.
Showing all the cards.
Run out of plays.
Yeah.
Oh,
well,
yeah,
just
okay.
not running out of plays, but showing all the cards, like plays you're saving for championship. Fourth quarter, you need a first down. Like, it's something you've been saving all year. Do you use it in this game, or you save it kind of knowing this game, like you mentioned, it means something, but at the same time, if you lose, you're still in the playoff, and you get a home game, most likely. And then the second part was, if Quinn is hurt in any way, shape, or form, do we see more Arch in this game than maybe you would expect? Again, knowing that if you lose, you're probably still in the playoff. So we're talking a lot of worst case scenarios here. A lot of negativity. We'll get positive later.
Yeah,
But
what
I just want
happened,
your
guys?
take on this.
That's usually my role.
Yeah.
So, what is success for this Texas team to you guys? Like, what does success look like this year? Define success.
No.
You asking me to define it?
Yeah. How far does this team go for it to be a successful year?
I think you got to get at least to the semifinals. So whether that means getting the bye and Yeah, because you get the bye, that puts you in the semifinals, right?
No,
Yeah, I think winning 2 playoff games would
you have
be
to win. You have to
tremendous.
win. We have to win one to get to the semifinal. If you
I
get the
think if
bye.
you win 2 playoff games,
Mhm.
it would be that's that would get you in the assuming you get the bye, that gets you in, right? Um, so I think winning 2 playoff games is going to be really hard for whoever does it. And I think you know you could see like Boise State winning 1 game, but them winning 2 games would be really tough. A
Yeah.
team like Texas has the talent to do it. A team like Oregon has the talent to do it. Um, quick thought on Oregon. Sorry, I think the Oregon team from last year is better than the team from this year. They just, like Texas, could not beat Washington. Michael Penix has the game, season of his life,
Mm-hmm.
and so
Yeah.
I think Bo Nix is better than Dylan Gabriel.
Yeah.
And the
But that's
reason,
another
so the
topic.
reason I asked that question is because it kind of drives, what you think of the rest of this year. To me, I think it's semifinals. I think it's probably finals though. I mean, you made the
Yeah.
semifinals last year, right?
Yeah.
And your team's much better than it was last year. I think everyone agrees with that. This team is better than last year's team.
Specifically
Um,
defensively. Offense.
Specifically, defensively, offense is,
Mm, it doesn't look as explosive, but they
yeah,
just win differently. They
they
kind of look
do.
like Michigan last year.
They do a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
But now we're finding our run game, which was something that we had seemed like a little bit more comfortability doing last year. So,
Mm-hmm.
so we'll see, right? But I think this year, I mean, I think you have to make the semifinal. I think you have to make the final though, in order for this to be a successful year, right?
Yeah.
Progress 1 year. Your fourth year should be better than your third year, ideally. And so, with that being the case, I mean, you still have at minimum 3 games to play to get to that point, right? And so it's so much different than prior years going into championship week, where you actually do have to be a little bit conservative on opening the playbook. So I don't want to see him open up the playbook, and if he's opening up a playbook to win the game at the very end, I think that's unfortunate because I think that's just going to show the cards of what we have left. I thought the fact that he saved that Arch Manning 16 wheeler package, whatever we want to call it, for the A&M game was just absolutely perfect, and it came at a perfect time. 4th and 2 in the red zone, opportunity to score first at Kyle Field. That's when you want to see those types of plays when it is super meaningful, and especially when you're trying to stick it to your rival like that with the name brand last name like Manning. So I don't. I mean, you do eventually run out of creativity for the year. Your installment goes back to fall camp and probably a little bit in spring too. So it's not like you can just conjure up a bunch of new creative plays and packages and all that kind of thing. You're still working off the same packages that you've been developing throughout the year, and you can put some nuance in there, but you can't just start stuff from scratch like you can during fall camp. So I don't know. This doesn't really answer the question, but I think in general it'd be really really nice to have some plays left in the bag going into the playoff, right? When you might need them most, when you might need to win that game in the playoff in order to move on to the next one. So keep that in mind too. You're still making the playoff in this SEC championship. So if you decide not to use that, the 17 wheeler package play that we have lined up against Georgia and we end up losing that game, it doesn't really matter because you still have that play set up for when you're playing Oregon in the national championship and you need to convert 4th and 5 from your own 8 or from their 8 to take the go ahead touchdown. That's when it really matters. And looking back, that's what we'll think as well. Injuries? Oh, go ahead, Justin.
No, I just wanted to touch on that and say I think the best play calls are the ones Sark doesn't have to make. He said at the end of the A&M game, I think it was, he said, we didn't go out and win fairly nilly with special play calls. We went out there and took it upon ourselves to win with physicality. And Elko said the same thing. He said, that team absolutely beat us on the field, just out physicaled us. So the best, most creative play calls are the ones that Sark doesn't have to call. They're great for when you need, maybe it's 2nd and 1 and you're starting to drive, you need a big splash play and you make something like that happen, great. But the best calls are the ones that Sark doesn't have to make because we're just running the ball and all the easy stuff is working, right? And he can window dress it a little bit. He can, line it up with trips on one side or do it out of 2 tight end packages, add some extra motion. Like he can call the same plays that have been working in different formations on different sides of the field and et cetera, right? So,
But there's also strategy to it, right? Like Mike Elko had to burn 2 timeouts when we put Arch Manning in the game in that package.
And they did figure it out, right? But it did make them burn timeouts, which is
they
very
burned 2
important.
timeouts. I mean, that's significant in college football. So, yeah, I mean, that's what you want to do is you want to catch that defense, thinking a little bit.
Yep.
Maybe they're struggling to get the right personnel on there and they have to call a timeout or they got 12 men on the field, whatever the case may be.
Faking injuries.
Okay, so speaking of injuries, I don't want to see Kelvin Banks in this game. I think for his own sake, in his NFL draft status, don't risk it. For the sake of having was it 3 weeks after this before the first round of playoff, something like that? I don't see any need for him to go in. You are so talented with that 2021 pool of offensive linemen that you should be able to put more Goosebys in there, Brandon Baker in there, whoever you need to put in there, and they're going to fill the void, right? We saw with Connor Robertson last year when he filled in for Jake Majors. You've got talent on that offensive line. You still have Cole Hudson, who hasn't played that much this year. So, no, I don't want to see him. Quinn, I'd like to see him back in there, but as soon as he gets a little bit gimpy, I'm yanking him. I'm yanking him out of there. And Isaiah Bond, I'm starting to wonder if it's lingering injury or if he's just out of sync with Quinn because he did not have a good game against A&M.
He was out of sync on a couple of passes, yeah.
Yeah. So on big plays, too. One of them, the block punt. Remember the block punt? I forget the block punt. That was the 3rd and 10 conversion that Isaiah Bond went out for a curl route and Quinn threw the out route.
Right.
And he was open.
And he went over there, I'm pretty sure, and said, "Hey, you messed up. You're supposed to do this." I think Quinn went over there and talked to him after that play and said, "You're not in sync. You need to straighten up." So,
yeah. So Isaiah Bond, I just hope he's gets mentally there again or physically there, whatever is hampering him gets better. So if that means don't play him, then don't play him. Let's just see some more Ryan Wingo.
Yeah, that'd be huge.
Moving on. Brett, what are you most worried about in this rematch?
Well, is it October 15th, October 19th, something like that?
19. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm afraid of watching that game again. That was so brutal to watch. We hinted at the beginning, so I won't, belabor my comments earlier, but our offensive line has to be so much better than they were the first time around. They have to be able to, put their will onto Georgia and just force them around, let Trey Wisner do his thing. And they also have to be able to protect Quinn and give Quinn that confidence. It's going to be in that first quarter where you're going to see if we're going to get, eyes down, Quinn's feet looking bad or not. It's going to be the first quarter. It's going to be how that offensive line protects him. The offensive line comes out on the first few series and shows that they can protect him. All of a sudden, Quinn's confidence is going to skyrocket. He's going to move around. He's going to step up. He's going to make those great throws to Gunnar Helm, to Matthew Golden, and everybody else that we've seen him make. But when his eyes get down, it's going to be trouble. So that's going to be the big thing for me. Everything in that first game goes back to the offensive line and being able to protect Quinn and being able to run the ball.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the thing I'm most worried about is kind of in that same line as is Quinn going to feel ghosts or see ghosts in the backfield? I don't. Right? I don't want him looking over his shoulder, worried about every little thing, and these damn corner blitzes that just keep coming up. So, yeah, offensive line has to be there. And first, I bet Sark comes out and throws on the first play because that's just what Sark's going to try and do. You would hope or think that he'd go, you know what, let's just run the damn ball. Let's just show that we can do this. But he's going to throw. It's just what Sark's going to do. And we'll see. It'll probably be an incomplete pass, whatever. So as long as we can see it.
There he is. There's the Justin I know.
I would love to see him run because we've been proving that we can do it, but Sark is going to throw the ball, and that's fine. Just, make it count, right? Don't let Quinn get inside his own head. Like if he takes a sack on the first play, holy crap, that's like one of the worst things we could ask for. So I'm hopeful I'm worried about Quinn seeing or feeling ghosts, but that offensive line, like you've been saying, is key to this game. So if they can keep Georgia off his back and let him have some time to plant his feet and make those throws, we're going to be in a good spot. So I'm a little worried about that. But the other thing, as I mentioned it earlier, is Georgia shows up way more for these big games than what they show out on film. What they showed against Georgia Tech is not the Georgia we know that can play. Okay, Georgia Tech showed that even a relatively above average ACC team can play. Now it is a rivalry game and all that. I get it, but they were able to play with Georgia when Georgia, I don't think, was playing at their best. They looked unfocused, whatever you want to call it. Georgia's going to come in here and play, or go into Atlanta playing a better brand of football. So I'm just worried. I don't want Texas to think about that. I want them to think about what happened in Austin and focus on, we got our asses whipped. All right. We need to go out there and show that that's not how we play.
Yeah. Like, I think you guys, like you said, Georgia, they show up in the big games. Last week, okay, it's a rivalry game, but do they really care about beating Georgia Tech? They were already locked in the SEC championship game.
Mm-hmm.
Assuming you show up for that game and win it, and you're in great shape. So I feel like with the Georgia loss, the other loss that they had as well, like you question, were they mentally prepared? And so I think they'll be mentally prepared this game. What we're worried about is Texas going to be able to match that at the beginning of the game. Can't afford to get in a hole early. We got double team or have the running backs chip better on Jalen Walker. He had 8 solo tackles, 3 sacks. That first game, he was unblockable. Kelvin Banks, probably his worst film of his college career against Jalen Walker. That guy was an animal that game. So we got to chip that guy, double team that guy. They'll probably put him on Gooseby. So that's kind of the matchup I'm looking for. And then get to the line early for Texas. Get to the line early, fake the snap, go on 2, whatever. See if you can see what that defense, they're coming out, whatever shell they're in, trying to cover what their scheme is. And hopefully you'll be able to see the corner blitz coming before it happens. And knowing Sark, we probably have a route that'll be open right behind that. Just don't throw it sidearm and get it tipped. All right. Opposite, Justin, what are you most confident about?
Defense. That defense has been balling out all year. Probably number 1 defense in the nation. Sure, they haven't played, super dynamic offenses all year long, but even when they have played above average to good offenses, they show out and they ball out. So defense is going to come ready. I think that they probably feel a little embarrassed that they let up 30 points, even though it wasn't fully their fault. We didn't play complimentary ball, right? But I think that they probably are like, nah, we ain't letting that happen again. All right. Etienne's not scoring 3 touchdowns against us. Beck, you only threw 3 picks. We're going to get 4 picks on you. So I love watching this defense. Probably the best defense that I've ever seen in my lifetime at Texas. They're historically good. So defense, chin straps will be buckled up. They'll be focused and ready to ball out. So I can't wait for that.
I'm going to add one thing that I'm worried about, and I don't think we talked about it a lot. Special teams. How abysmal that was last week. I don't want to go into too much detail, but Bert Auburn is unreliable, and the fact that we have not had a real big splash play on punt returns, but now we're letting other teams block our punts, that's concerning going into this season. So throwing that out there, Mr. Pessimistic. Mr. Pessimist over here.
Just speaking truth.
Jay. Yeah. Confidence, it's the defense, right? I think if you ask 100 Longhorn fans what they're most confident about, it's going to be somewhere on the defense. I'll be specific, and I'm going to say the defensive line on this one, and specifically the pass rush. I don't think we had a single sack on Carson Beck in the first one, so I'm looking for those sack numbers to go up significantly. We have been, talk about cohesive units, right? That defensive line, the way that they have covered up these dual threat quarterbacks that we've played the past few weeks with Diego Pavia and the Arkansas guy, Traylon Green. And then
Marcel Reed.
Yeah, Marcel Reed last week. The way that they've been able to expose them out of the pocket and getting them run laterally, and then still getting them sacked or making them force a bad throw to Michael Taft for an interception. I'm expecting a lot out of this defensive line in this game too.
Yeah.
All right, let's roll these last three into one. Players of the game, bold take, prediction. Brett, what you got?
All right, player of the game. Offensive player of the game is going to be Quinn Ewers in his single best bounce back game ever. I think he's going to. I'll also give some bold takes. I think he's going to throw for 250 yards plus against a team that he didn't do nearly that against last time. I don't think.
He
And
did like
also, he's
219.
going to have 0 turnovers. And
I
yeah,
like that. I
yeah,
like
he's going
that.
to have 0
Yeah,
turnovers.
so that's your bold take, right?
That's my bold take. Is he's going to have 0. Quinn is going to have 0 turnovers. And the offensive line is going to limit sacks to 1. It's going to be that is it. So those are my bold takes. Score prediction. What's the over under and everything again?
Texas 2.5, 49.5 is the over under.
49.5. We scored we scored 15 points in the last game. One thing I did read about this is in the stadium that they play in Atlanta for the SEC championship. Apparently, it's very fast turf, and so sometimes when you see very good defenses playing against each other, it actually turns into a shootout. And there were some references to it in the past. So I'm going to increase the score. I'm going to take the over in this one. So we're going to be plus 50 on this one. But I'm going to say Texas is going to win. I think we're going to put up 38 points on them, and to Georgia's 20. I'm going to say they're going to have 20.
Hell yeah, brother. I like that.
Yeah, 2 touchdowns. Two
I like it.
touchdowns and a field goal lead over them. I like it.
I hope I'm wrong, and I hope you're right. I'm gonna ride. I'm gonna ride the Wisner horse, man. That dude has been unbelievable the past 2 games, really the second half of the season since OU. He's been our best running back by far. Quintravion, don't call him Trey Wisner. I think he's gonna put up 150 by himself. Probably get himself a score. Maybe not. But I think they're going to go out and try to run the ball. No, you know what? Yeah, I think Weiser's going to get himself. I think he's going to give himself a touchdown, and I think he's going to rush for 150. The other bold take I'll go with here is I think Quinn throws for 2 touchdowns, right? So I think we get 3 touchdowns. I think that's how we score. I think we maybe don't even kick a field goal just because I don't know if we can trust Burt, like you're saying. So we'll see. I think we probably have a slow start, but I think it is a defensive game. That's a really interesting note you had about the turf and how it kind of turns into a shootout and something in games like this. I'm going to stick with my score. I think it's going to be a little bit lower scoring. I'll take 21-14. Again, Trey's going to get himself 1. Quinn's going to get himself a couple. And we just play ball control, complimentary football. Yeah, sure, we have a couple of punts, but I think we force Georgia to play in a slower game, and I don't know if they can do that long term and drive the field as much as we'll be able to do it against them.
Yeah, now I'm interested in this type of turf. Thinking about this, I think the Atlanta Falcons offense generally scores more points at home. It's a good call out. I think Gunnar Helm is going to be player of the game. He's been for the Texas side. He's been that key guy all year for Quinn. Bold take is Texas is going to have 5 sacks and just be all over Carson Beck.
Nice.
And then my score prediction. I'm going reverse. Texas wins 30-15.
Hey,
So
I like that.
that's gonna call on a couple field goals from Bert Auburn. I was actually, I was going flip flop. I don't think making 3 field goals gets you a player of the game, because that's just doing your job. But I'm expecting we're gonna need Bert Auburn to make some field goals to win this game and future games. And to that point, I'd like to see more of Sark taking the points in the red zone in this type of game where points are going to matter and, maybe be the decision maker later in the game on whether or not you have to go for it on 4th down or not. So I'm a big proponent on taking the points. So we'll see what happens.
When you play in Madden or the college football game, do you take the points?
It depends if I'm an underdog. If I'm playing on the road and can't communicate with my receivers, if I need to audible, yeah, because you
Gotcha.
never know what formations. You come out, hey, I got a great play. I'm running this jet sweep, which works really well. But if they've got, if they're stacked on the side I'm calling the jet sweep on, and I can't call an audible because the noise is too loud, then
Take the
just take the
penalty.
penalty, take the penalty, and kick a field goal or call a timeout. Um, anyway,
That's good.
I think Bill O'Brien should play some NCAA or Madden, and I think he would improve his game management skills a ton. And maybe the Texans would have won some playoff games back when Deshaun Watson, um, you know,
Was good.
was good. Yeah.
Ryan Day could probably play a little better as well.
There was a funny thing the other day. I think um, it was Urban Meyer, I think.
Yeah.
And he was playing a video game, and then he handed it off to Ryan Day, and, and just
The bus
ran a
just drives.
bus off. Yeah, he drove a bus off the cliff in the video game.
I'm glad you got the reference. Thank you.
Yeah, that was I couldn't remember who it was, but like that totally encapsulates Ohio State versus Michigan.
Yep.
Since Ryan Day's taken over.
Yeah.
I know we're like talking about other things now, but Texas beating Michigan earlier in the year. I think that same quarterback, yeah, he had more reps by the time he played Ohio State, but Texas pretty well handled Michigan, and then it's a rivalry game, but Ohio State didn't look great against Michigan.
That was
Lost the game
in Ohio State.
a home game, right?
Mm-hmm. Which is our first game of the year, by the way. You want to meet up next season? We play at the Horseshoe. Yeah,
that's
pretty cool.
We'll see which transfer quarterback Ohio State gets next year. In NCAA, it's typically Avery Johnson, so another Kansas State transfer quarterback.
Amazing.
So we'll see what happens there. But yeah,
Nice.
That should be a fun one.
Real quick before we head out, do y'all remember we were talking about, it may have been off air a couple of weeks ago, after we played Kentucky, I was telling y'all about how their receivers are pretty good, Barian Brown and Dane Key. And I said, Don't be surprised if one of them enters the transfer portal and comes to Texas. Guess who's in the transfer portal? Dane Key already put himself in the transfer portal. So I'm just saying, get ready for it. That speed is real, and I think Sark's going to be looking to grab something like that. No truth to the rumor. That's just me spitballing.
Yep. All right, Brett, close us out since you found this new and improved app, and we want to make sure you get full credit.
Yeah, I'm not going
Can
to
you
turn
hear
this
me?
into a Dr. Pepper commercial where I'm highlighting that Riverside.fm podcast is our new platform studio, and they're certainly not giving us any money or monetizing this podcast whatsoever. And that's not the Aflac duck right there. I think this is exciting. I mean, again, the best thing about this game is A&M's never been there, and we're doing it our first year. So
That's right.
I'm fired up about being here. Yeah, that's right. I'm fired up about this, and certainly for the CFP afterwards. We'll figure out the 41st Acres cadence and how we'll report during those 3 weeks buys and to give updates and all that. Maybe we'll have some recruiting updates and all that kind of thing. But for now, let's go ahead and close it out. As always, we're a little unfiltered, somewhat biased, and 75% truthful. And that's that. Thanks for tuning in.